Lumine running underwater carrying a gun in a very fancy suit is certainly one of those 2026 Genshin moments of all time, and that's what today's video is all about, taking the gun traveler as they're called and just seeing what kind of goofy stuff we can get up to in Teyvat. So for those of you that are not familiar, there is currently in Genshin a bit of a bug where you can take the gun traveler outside of the Shadow Realm and then you can play with them in the overworld. If you want a detailed tutorial, there's a YouTube channel called Glitch Senpai that actually covers this in quite a bit of detail. But for our purposes, all you need to know is that the Genshin devs basically forgot to do a very simple little check, and if you just teleport out of this special zone and then back into Teyvat, you can play as the gun traveler. So it is kind of very silly how this glitch works. It's an obvious oversight they'll fix. In any case, let's do some cool stuff. So here, if we go into a Wave Rider and we pop out, you'll see that the gun traveler is swimming, which is kind of really bizarre. For those of you that might have picked up, we're actually in the gliding animation, just done wrong. So it's kind of applying the wind glider animation just to a swimming Lumine, which is so crazy. You can only go down, you can't go up. And then once you hit land, well, you just travel as normal. There's also a bit of another funny glitch. I call it curved the bullet Lumine. So you can see it looks like you're shooting to the side and you're hitting enemies. So you might be like, okay, but how did you get into this super goofy state? Well, you can see you're in Notcry, you just go into this little special plant thingamabob, and then look at that, you're in this pose, and then killed if you don't have enough health. So do be wary that you don't get lost in the Shadow Realm known as Notcry. You can definitely see this kind of an interesting bug. In any case, another little fun thing is if you go into the Serenity pot, you might be like, ooh, okay, wow, Kokomi Clan, you've got an amazing teapot. Thank you very much. But more seriously, there are these little vortices in the, what do you call it, fontaine teapot. So now I had an idea. What if I slide down this? What is going to happen? Well, let's see. Yeah, we are just going to almost activate our James Bond type of moment here. You can see Lumina sliding, and then for some odd reason she's going to start tilting a bit backwards, almost like Special Agent Lumine sliding down the ways. It's super crazy. The first time I did this, I didn't really know what to expect, and then I got the Sturdy Knees achievement, because there's actually an achievement if you slide for more than 20 meters. So very unintentionally, I just got some extra primo gems. I didn't know you could do this. So that's also one of those little goofy things that you can do. And also if you go into Sumru or some place with like very high landscapes and stuff, you can do like an infinite sliding down on slopes, which is always kind of a bit of fun. So one of the other things that I also had to try and see is, well, okay, can we enter a domain with the gun traveler, and how is that going to look like? And on my account, I purposefully didn't complete the, I think it's 4.7 special Archon Questima thingy. You just watch it on YouTube, because I do a lot of glitches in this domain. So I was just like, okay, can we take gun traveler into the story domain? And unfortunately, I can't go and shoot Carrybird right here, so I'm pretty sorry to disappoint you guys. But now the question is, if I exit the story domain, am I still going to be gun traveler? And this is something that is very counterintuitive, and it's actually started leading me to understand how this glitch actually works. You can see here I've got my normal party. That's like pretty cool. So obviously if I've got a normal party, I can change my normal party, right? Well, actually no, look at that. The party is currently in a special state and cannot complete this action. What's more, and this is like I didn't figure this out, by the way, when I did this background footage. I just literally did some random stuff, and when I teleported, I was back to Gun Lumine. So this kind of already tells you something that's really cool. But I'll show you now how the mechanics work. So one other little cool thing is that if you go to Mondstadt, you can go into these little angel cool thingamabobs, and then your Lumine can basically fly in the air. It's really stupid. So you can see I've certainly had a ton of fun trying to take pictures and stuff, but it's the same principle. You're effectively gliding with Lumine or the Traveler, and what then happens is, as long as you don't press the space button, so remember, if you do like a gliding with the wings and you press space, you'll fall down. So in this case, if you don't press the space bar, but you keep on like just walking normally, and you don't press the sprint bar, whatever, you can just walk in the air like this. It's really really goofy, but as I'm walking, let me explain like what's actually happening. So the gun traveler is actually not a real playable character. There's no character ID associated with them. So this means that you can't actually technically include them in a party and whatnot. And the special state that the game is in, if you look at the top left hand corner there, there's the little, almost looks like a cell phone signal with a little do not enter sign, and effectively when you see that on the screen, your game is in a special mode where you cannot go to co-op. So basically you can't take Gunlumine into a Milliastra Wonderland, but you can obviously take her into the Serenity Pot. And this special mode is typically associated with the story modes in Genshin Impact, as well as certain events, triggers, and such. But it kind of locks out your entire party in the game, and there are a couple of other restrictions, but the majority of the game is still playable for you as a character. For example, if you go to Catherine and you speak to Catherine, you'll see that this no-go traveler will actually then swap out with the actual traveler. A lot of people think that these characters, especially when they have like character skins, it's the same character. It's not. Like every character, even like let's say Nilo with her two skins, those are two separate Nilos that have been coded up in the game. They just inherit the same like skills and stuff, but they're actually two separate characters according to the game's logic. And also, as you can see here, ordinarily, when you look at your party and so on, you cannot find this traveler in the party. So there's no character ID, as we've mentioned before. But you can still take the no-go traveler or gun traveler into domains. And this is what you see a lot of people do online. They go and shoot Senora in the head with a gun to kind of get revenge for... Okay, I'm not going to spoil things. But basically, you know, people can get like really, really silly because this is the content people put out on TikTok. Yay, my TikTok moment. A level 900 enemy that I'm shooting with 35 damage bullets. How nice. Okay, let's talk about something a bit more interesting, and that is what happens when we go underwater with the gun traveler. So that's how I've kind of opened this video, but the underwater mechanics are very, very interesting. So basically in Fontaine, there's no such thing as being underwater. You're effectively always just floating in the air. And I've done a couple of videos in the past to demonstrate this, including going into Fontaine's water with a Cucasaur, and then you can basically see how the illusion kind of drops down or like kind of like fades. It's effectively just a fancy filter that they put on screen, and then your character floats. Also, I've done it with the latest, Fontanalia event, where I had Kokomi in the fish tank. So do watch that video, and you'll basically see that, yeah, things like this thing is not swimming in the water, it's just floating in the air. But coming back to the gun traveler, it is actually kind of very difficult to control them. So the slide here, that kind of forces me to go in the backwards direction. I don't know what that is. And it's the same when you use aiming mode. It's almost like there's a fixed reference point, and then whenever you press aiming mode or slide, you always go towards that fixed reference point. It doesn't matter where you place your cursor. And also, to travel here with the traveler, you basically use your mouse, like where you're aiming, to get your pitch. So you're up and down. So basically, if I point up, traveler starts air walking up, and if I point down, she starts literally going down. So the controls underwater with gun traveler are very, very counterintuitive, and if you try and make some sharp turns, the model of the traveler can get very like a little squashed up and so on. But there are a couple of cool little things to note. So the first thing is that the gun traveler themselves cannot heal with food. So the only way you can heal with gun traveler that I found at the moment, maybe there's some other ways, is to actually interact with the fishes underwater. So the fish underwater can actually heal the gun traveler. So that's kind of a nice little thing that you wouldn't expect. And then a couple of other things there. You can pick up flowers and interact with the environment as normal. But one thing that I've noticed is that if you go outside again into, let's say, where we started with gun traveler or a couple of the other caverns, and you look at the water, you know, like where you can enter the water from the side, your bullets can travel through the water, but they can't travel from the outside into the water. regardless of whether you're shooting from the surface or from the side. So that's one of those little interesting little gimmicks that I found out as well. And then when it comes to interacting with this environment, I also noticed that some of the vortices that are here will only make the traveler just like, what do you call it, dash faster or walk faster through the water. I think that's actually going to come up now in the background footage. As I go through this, you'll see, look at this. The traveler is just going to go, boom, she's just going to run slightly faster through the water. So there's not really something special there, but some of the vortices here that allow you to be kind of like scooped up and then sends you flying, that'll basically break the traveler's model. So it's kind of a bit of a horror show. I don't know if I should show it because you can already see Lumine bending like this feels uncomfortable to watch. But it is kind of like interesting to see that. And then a couple of other things as well. The enemies here in the underwater, what do you call it, area and fontaine, if they hit you, you'll obviously die as a traveler. So you might be like, well, okay, where do you respawn when you die as gun traveler? And the answer is you actually respawn to the nearest teleporter on your map, not to the last place that you died. So this is almost similar to like a door of resurrection in a domain that takes you to the last known location. But in this case, your door of resurrection, when you fall into the whatever shadow realm when you die, is actually the last teleported place. So that's kind of interesting when you kind of look at these mechanics and how they play out. A couple of other things as well. Underwater, you can pick up Osea and the Pneuma particles, although you just can't do anything with them. Another fun thing is if you stand on land and you try and teleport directly underwater, the traveler will basically be stuck and frozen in one place and you can't move them out. But if you go from the sides and you're underwater and you then teleport from one underwater place to another underwater place, you can move normally with the traveler. And similarly, as you saw in the beginning of the video, if you go into one of those little special vortices that like pushes you forward, so that one like right there in front, effectively you'll stop, but you can then just use the sprint button to carry on moving. So the movement controls are very, very unintuitive with Gun Traveler. Look, there are a couple of other things as well in the overworld. One thing that I didn't show in this video is basically on the Sumru mushrooms. You can bounce with Traveler, and the moment that you start shooting, you'll start bouncing a lot faster. So that's kind of a weird little glitch that's there with the Traveler. For those of you that want to try this glitch out, you can do that. And obviously there are a couple of other cool things in the overworld that you can try. Just do note that with the Gun Traveler, you can't glide, you can't climb normally. So it really is just the underwater in Fontaine that, for me at least, was the most interesting. But yeah, that is it that I have to say. I think it was so much fun playing with the Underwater Traveler. Do look forward to some future footage, just background footage with some more shenanigans that I'll be able to think of. And do try the glitch because it's going to get patched really, really soon. So do watch out for Glitch Senpai's channel. If you watched it until this far, thank you so much for watching and have a lovely day. Cheers!